Hey guys, it's Lauren. I have to make a 45-minute drive today, so I figured why not do a drive with me? Tell you a little bit more about me and my family and our life. So today, I'm actually going up to meet my sister-in-law, so my brother's wife, at a zoo nearby. They do a brew at the zoo, so it's all these different beer tastings, that kind of stuff. So I don't really drink much, not for any particular reason, I just don't care for it. A little bit about me. I am 32. No, I will be 32 in a few short weeks. Whew. I got my bachelor's in science of nursing. My first job right out of college was working in home care. I was around the age of 22. I decided it was time I wanted to start looking for a house. And when I was hired with that first company, I was only hired as a per diem. According to them, if you are under 1 year of having your nursing license, you cannot be made a case manager full-time. So obviously, in order to get a mortgage on a house, I need to be full-time somewhere. So I found another agency that, don't know why they had different rules and regulations, but I was able to be hired on full-time as a case manager. So I was able to buy my first house right after I turned 23. So that was pretty cool. Camera keeps moving, I need to buy a car mount. Working in home care, it means that I have around 6 patients a day. They could be all sorts of acuity. I get the flexibility where I can chart at home, or I can chart if my kids are home, you know, half day at school, homesick, whatever the reason may be. So super helpful during COVID because, you know, someone was positive in the class at daycare. The kids had to come home for 10 days. So in order for me and Mark to keep working, we would share the day. And then when I was home with the kids, I'd be getting my work done. A little bit about Mark and I. We met online. We dated 2 years? I don't know. So, 2-ish years before we got engaged. Another year before we were married. This year will be 7 years married. I was pregnant on our anniversary. But, you know, doctor always said, for your first pregnancy, it can take 6 months to a year. So we figured, let's start, and it only took 1 month. So yeah, 2 little boys. One of them is 5.5 and the other will be turning 3 soon. Fun little story about giving birth. So my 5.5-year-old, I was 41 weeks. So for those of you who know, that is past due. I was still working as a nurse. That car just took forever to turn to Burger King. So I was on my feet a lot. All right, I'm giving you the go-ahead to turn. Let's turn. So here I was past due. I had extra fluid, so that also meant I was huge. And the doctor finally said to me, baby had been head down the whole time. They said, you know, with extra fluid in there, it makes it a little easier for them to flip. You're past due, let's start being induced. And first time mom, I don't know how old I was, 24, 25, whatever age I was at. And I said, sure, let's have this baby, let's get induced. Went in to be induced on a Sunday night. Baby did not come till Tuesday afternoon. So you can do the math on that one. It was not the best experience, although I'm not really sure any labor is. Well, I take that back. Some people say they have beautiful labors. That was not one of them. We're going past a major construction area where they've been blasting to widen the highway. But any hoosies. So that was the firstborn. Totally comfy, didn't want to get out. Took 2.5 days of induced before he decided to join us. And then and he was born with meconium. So that just means that he pooped while still inside my belly, so he swallowed some. So when he came out, he wasn't really breathing very well on his own, although it was a very quick, they suctioned him, he was fine. We also didn't know gender, so the doctor, I had always wanted Mark to tell me the gender and cut the cord, but because he was not breathing, they kind of just cut the cord. NICU team was there, took him over, got him breathing and, you know, doing all that on his own. And then I asked the doctor, boy or girl? And I had a boy. My second baby, it was, I don't know, 38 or 39 weeks. This is the stuff I think I'll remember forever, and then, well, I don't. But I think it was 39. I think I was almost 40. I don't know. Anyways, I had gone to bed, and I had just seen the OB that day. I thought I started feeling a little cramping, but also in my mind, I thought, you know, it's probably me just thinking I am, and I'm not really, and I'm just kind of being hopeful that I have cramping. So I woke up 2:30ish or so, realized that, nope, I'm having contractions. So I get up, I said, it's early in the morning. Oh, and the other funny part is I had seen, so I worked, this was a Wednesday morning, I worked Tuesday, and I had seen my work schedule for Wednesday, and I didn't want to go to there was a patient on there that was a little difficult. And I remember saying, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. So anyways, so I wake up, don't want to wake up Mark yet. I don't know if this is the real deal or not. So I decide, like, everyone wants to labor in the tub. They think it's this great thing. So I load, we have a huge soaker tub. I fill the tub with water, which takes a while. And I finally get in the water. It was not it. It was not helping me at all. Yeah, it's just, I think laying on my back, it just couldn't. So I immediately got out, went downstairs, and the plan was that when I went into labor, my mom would come over and take care of my oldest. She'd bring him to daycare and get that stuff kind of sorted. And I had told her that I would try and get, like, his lunches and, like, snacks packed, and that way, you know, it's just kind of easier for her. So I said, you know, forget the bathtub. I didn't even bother draining the water. Went downstairs, and I'm trying to pack his lunch and his snacks, and I just couldn't. The contractions hurt so bad. I just couldn't. So I went and laid down on the couch. I had my contraction timer, and I was able to actually, like, fall asleep between my contractions. So I wasn't really, like, coherent enough to know actually how far apart they were because I was sleeping. So, and then it got to, I don't know, about 4 o'clock, I think, 4:30. And my mom always wakes up really early, so I texted her to call me when she's up. So she calls me, and I'm kind of just talking through the contractions. We're trying to figure out a plan. Again, I wasn't really paying attention to how far apart they were. I just knew that they were coming, and I was in pain. So we kind of discussed, like, okay, well, should we call the OB? Like, they open at 8. You know, maybe I'll drop James off at daycare at like 6:30, which is the earliest they open. So maybe I'll drop him off at 6:30 and then make my way down to the OB so I can get, like, checked and see if I'm really in labor. And the more and more that time went on, I realized that was not happening. So about 4:45, I go to get up because I had one of those, like, stability balls, I guess they're called. And I was like, oh, you know, people say that those are really helpful. You know, they help open your hips and help the pain. And, hang on, I gotta let somebody on. Okay. So they really help the pain, and I go to get up and get the ball, which was, 5 feet from me. Instantly had to get sick. Instantly. Now, I had listened to a podcast called The Birth Hour, millions of birth stories. I probably listened to at least 1,000. Most of them pointed out that when you're at the point of getting sick, you're usually in transition. But in the moment, I don't really remember that. So at that point, I said, okay, I need to go upstairs. I need to wake up Mark, tell him what's going on. So I go upstairs, I wake up Mark, and I get in the shower. And I'm just standing there, and I have the hot water hitting my back. It's making things a little bit more tolerable, not that unmedicated labor really is. And at that point, he calls my mom. She says, yeah, call the doctor. So he calls the doctor, and at this point too, I've really stopped timing my contractions. I couldn't focus on it anymore. I couldn't really do it. The phone was somewhere else. And doctor calls back pretty quickly and says, yep, go to the hospital. So, call my mom, who lives a mile down the road, maybe. And it's about 5:30 at this point. Call up my mom. Mark says, yep, we need you to come. Doctor says go to the hospital. So meanwhile, Mark is, like, most of our stuff is packed. I knew there was, like, my bag was actually in the car. The car seat was in the car. His bag had most of the stuff packed except, like, 2 things. And I was actually with it enough to remember to tell him those 2 things. And then the way we had parked our cars that night in our driveway, like, the car we were taking was blocked in. So he, like, ran out to, take out the car, get it out of the way. It's like 5:50 at this point, and like I said, Mom lives one mile away. Mom's still not there, and so Mark is calling her again. It's like, where are you? And so at this point, I am standing out on my, like, little porch, and I am screaming through my contractions, and it's 5:50 in the morning, so it's early. Thankfully, our other son stayed asleep through the entire thing, so he never really even noticed, which was awesome. So Mom pulls in, or she says she's on her way or whatever. So I get in the car and I can't even sit down. So Mark, it's actually this car. So Mark is driving, I'm sitting in the passenger, but instead of sitting, I'm, like, kneeling backwards. So I'm, like, wrapping my arms around, like, the back of the seat, because there's no way I'm about to sit down. And so as soon as we saw her, like, pull down the street in the car, we immediately left. So he's, like, flying down the road. It was awful. I just remember the back roads, like because of how fast he was going, the way he was turning. I just remember it was not a fun time. And he's making his phone call, so he's calling his mother to say, yep, it's it, we're headed to the hospital, blah, blah, blah. He calls his boss, and it happened to be when he was on the phone with his boss, I was going through a contraction, and I know I screamed at him, like, get off the effing phone, or get off the phone, or something. So, sorry, Glenn. We live about 45 minutes from the hospital. So we left at 5:55. It might have even been closer to 6. And at one point, he starts to panic, and he calls my mom and says, do you think I should call for a police escort? And she's like, oh, you're being dramatic. She's fine. You guys are fine. Just drive and get there safely. So we're like 10 minutes out from the hospital. Probably 5 more minutes on the highway. 5-ish on the back streets to get there. My contractions turned to pushing, which, for those of us who've had a baby, we know it feels so much better when our body starts doing that. You're not having that horrible pain. You were able to finally do something to help. However, we also know that means the baby's coming. So I have 2 contractions where I am pushing, and I'm not pushing hard, but just enough that I'm not in the excruciating pain anymore. And I knew I had to feel to see what was going on. But I was scared because we were still in the car. We were not next to the hospital yet. And so after the 3rd time, my 3rd contraction, where I was still pushing, I felt and I could feel the head. It was not out, but I knew it was there. So I calmly say to my husband, I can feel the head. The baby is coming. And he says, no, it's not. I said, yes, it is. I said, you need to call the ER, because at this point, like, the main hospital wasn't open. Like, if you go before whatever hours, you go to the ER. I said, you need to call the ER right now and tell them to be ready for us. I don't even know how we got the number. I don't remember that. But next thing you know, he's talking to them. He gets off the phone. He says they're gonna have a team waiting for you. Great. So we're off the highway, still feeling a little pushy. Several stoplights between us and the hospital. I don't know if he ran them or if they turned green and were on our favor. I don't know. I remember pulling in, and now the main entrance is right next to the ER, and there's a valet like right in the main entrance. So we start to go in, and because, you know, we got a little bit going on, we can't remember which way the ER was. So he starts to go towards the main entrance, and all of a sudden he hears people behind us screaming over here, and they're like waving their arms, and I don't know how many people there were. There was a bunch of them. So he throws the car in reverse, just flies backwards in the parking lot at the ER, and just parks the car. I don't even know if the car was turned off or not. I have no idea. So, oh, we're gonna get off the highway. Hopefully my camera stays. So Mark tells me this part, that I cause I was kneeling the entire car ride. So I was kneeling on the seat. Whoop. So at that point, I laid on the seat with my feet outside of the car. And we did have a towel. I thought to bring a towel. Well, I told Mark to grab a towel. Of course, he grabbed one of our nice towels that we got for our wedding, but it was a towel. So anywho, so Mark tells me that once I was in that position, people came over to me. I remember them coming over, and I remember them saying, "We got you, mama," like, we got you. And Mark says they brought a stretcher over to me, and as soon as one of the nurses looked at me, they said, "Nope, it's happening here, get it out." So stretcher went away, 2 contractions, 2 pushes. So the first contraction I had when we were actually in the hospital parking lot broke my water. So obviously my water was intact the whole time, didn't know. I never really had my water, you know, I had it broken by the doctor the first time around, so I didn't really know what that actually felt like. Second push, baby was out. Right there in my car. We were pretty big celebrities for a while at the hospital. Everyone called us the car baby. So I remember once baby was born, again, and I kept saying to them, so you think about your car, right? There's only so much room in front of the door. So there's a whole bunch of people in front of the door. I didn't even know where Mark was. Not a clue. And I asked them, I said, "Where is Mark?" But of course, maybe they answered me. I really don't know. But I didn't want them to tell me, because once again, we did not know the gender. I did not want them to tell me the gender. I wanted my husband to tell me the gender. So I said, "Don't tell me gender, don't tell me gender." And I'm like, "Where's Mark?" Well, come to find out, he was standing at the driver's door, like watching me through the car, because he couldn't even get over to me. And so again, baby was born with meconium, having inhaled it. So baby was not breathing. So I know a nurse caught baby. And then I remember when she was holding the baby, all I kept saying was, "My baby, my baby, my baby." And then finally, because I couldn't find Mark in that moment, I said, "What is it?" And it was another boy. So the funny thing is, he was actually born on 11/11, so it's pretty cool. And we don't know his time of birth. We guessed at about 6:30, 6:35. I honestly cannot remember which one's on the birth certificate. That's really bad. But it's one of those. So you think about it, We left the house at 6, so we made it there by 6:30, 6:35. So he cut off 10 minutes of our drive down there. And when you look at the big picture, I went into labor 2:30 in the morning. 4 hours later, baby was here. With my first, it took over 30 hours. So I was not expecting to go that quickly. Anyways, back to that morning. The doctor takes baby. The nurses take me. So they get me on the stretcher. This is during the pandemic. And I, as a nurse, I say to them, I'm so sorry I don't have a mask on. And they're just looking at me like, you're fine. We'll get you a mask. It's okay. So they bring me into like I think they brought me right up to labor and delivery at that point. And they were like, okay, like you can get breakfast. Like you have the baby, you're good. You can just eat and wait. And the doctor joined me to take care of the afterbirth. Because he didn't make it for the delivery, obviously. And then finally in walked some other doctor who I did not know, and Mark, and I don't know who was holding the baby, but one of them had the baby, and they all walked in together. So I, you know, got to hold baby, do some skin to skin, ordered some breakfast. But I do remember not long after, Mark calling my mom, I don't know, 6:50 in the morning maybe, like it wasn't long from the whole thing. And he's like, well, we have a baby. And she goes, what do you mean you have a baby? And he's like, I told you we had to be there quickly. The baby was coming. So, and then my mom actually texted my best friend and was like, baby's here, wait until you hear the story. And so of course she's talking to her roommate before like her and I got on the phone. She's like, watch her have him in the car. The funny thing is, so that friend, Julie, who is a NICU nurse, she was a NICU nurse for a while in Virginia, and now she's at hospital in Boston, Brigham. And she always said, do not have a birth plan. All the moms who have birth plans, something goes horribly wrong. And I didn't have one the first time. And this time I said, I'm not gonna have one. I said, the only thing I want is to make it to the hospital. I guess I should have been more clear and say make it inside the hospital. When you give birth, the valet will park your car. The valet took one look at the car and it's like, nope, I'm not driving that. So Mark went over and parked it for him. And the car was actually fine. Like there wasn't really, it was good. There was one little area that he took care of right after, but it did surprisingly well. So, oh, and Mark said after he parked the car, when he had like our bags, there was someone standing like in the door at the ER and was like, baby this way, mama this way. And that's when he went with baby until they joined me. At my six week follow-up, I followed with the doctor who was there, and he comes in, he's like, you want to do your follow-up in the car? Funny. I work in my car, I drive around all day. Mark works at a Honda dealership, so he used to work on the cars. He is a mechanic, he still does that stuff on the side, and now he's a service writer. So my coworker was like, Mark works on cars, you work out of your car. It only makes sense to have a baby in the car. So, and someday he will hear the story. I don't know what age is appropriate for that, but he's the one turning 3 soon, and I know it's not yet. So that is the story of our little family. So we actually have some pretty fun, exciting things coming up. We just finished a trip to Hershey, which I did vlog about. And in less than a month, we are taking a cruise. So we leave out of New York and we go up to Canada. So it'll be like the end of September. So we'll have like the fall foliage. I'm excited. I'm excited that it's not gonna be hot. I mean, I love the beach, I love the water, but I'm not I was not excited about 2 kids while I'm hot and gross and in the sand and everything just gets sticky. So I'm really glad that this was the cruise that we kind of picked for our first time as a family of 4. Last time we cruised, the oldest was 9 months before COVID. We had one booked, but then COVID canceled it. So it was actually right around when the world shut down back in March of 2020. So I'm really, really excited. I can't wait to just get away, have the one-on-one time with the family, introduce them to something new, something that me and Mark love to do. All right, peace out, Girl Scout. About 8:30, I'm heading home. I'm not gonna talk for long just because it's dark out, so I have my light on. But I wanna say thank you for watching. We had a great time at the Brew at the Zoo. If you like these videos, be sure to like them and subscribe. And thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.